always get your way.
Let's play punchies. Let's play punchies.
I'm sick of it. Of course I'm not gonna beat you at punchies.
Dude, you don't beat anybody at punchies.
Most shows give you two friends who balance each other out, push each other forward, make each other better. Finn and Jake would die for each other. Dipper and Mabel literally saved each other from the apocalypse. Mordecai and Rigby can't even agree on who gets to pick player one without nearly being roasted alive. And yet somehow, these two slackers fighting over a sucky pickaxe might be the most honest depiction of male friendship I've ever seen in a cartoon. In its early seasons, Regular Show is a masterclass in depicting an era of male friendship defined by a shared, almost tactical refusal to participate in the real world. For Mordecai and Rigby, working as groundskeepers at the park is an extended taxpayer-funded hangout. The very first episode tells you almost everything there is to know about their relationship. Mordecai and Rigby bust a hole in the wall while role-playing a fight with a wrestling doll. And instead of just owning it, Rigby's first instinct is to dodge the blame entirely.
Dude, we're 23 years old. We shouldn't be busting holes in walls. We're gonna get fired for this.
You mean you're gonna get fired for this?
That one line is their whole dynamic in like 5 seconds. Mordecai wants to look like the responsible one. Rigby wants zero accountability, and neither of them is actually going to fix the wall. And when Mordecai suggests they just ask Benson for a raise to cover it, Rigby shuts it down like he's been personally offended.
No, that's not gonna work. What are you, 65? Excuse me, sir, can I have a raise? Come on! I'm telling you, dude. Ham boning.
Among others, Rigby's refusal to grow up is what fuels their codependency. J.G. Quintel actually talked about this once. When he was pulling the show together, he already had Mordecai as a sort of self-insert character from his student films, along with Pops and Benson. But Mordecai needed a friend, so he just made up Rigby. Which means everything you're watching, all the codependency, all the enabling, all the shared nonsense, it all comes from the fact that Mordecai couldn't be alone. These two often rely on a shared language of deflection where those oohs and hms act as an emotional shield of sort, or just something to say in the meantime while there's nothing else to say. Because young men rarely unpack their feelings or fears or emotions or talk in depth. They funnel that existential dread into low-stakes conflicts and small, inappropriate things, and they just choose to argue over the most ridiculous, absurd things that exist. Who gets the last slice? Who picks the movie? Who's the more macho? Who has to sit in the middle seat? And if you've ever been in your early 20s with a best friend, you kind of know exactly what this looks like. You'll have a 40-minute argument about where to eat before you'll spend 30 seconds talking about why you're actually miserable. There's some avoidance going on. This shared defiance creates a feedback loop where laziness and opacity becomes a lifestyle. And it works. Not because it's healthy, but because they're doing it together. And that kind of explains everything that comes next, because this leads us to the specific insidious comfort of having a partner in crime when you're kind of failing at life. In Season 1, Episode 2, Benson gives them the easiest possible task for a kid's birthday party. Just set up the chairs, because he already knows he can't trust them with something big.
I can't trust you guys with something actually important. You're always slacking off.
Instead of recognizing their boss's frustration, they immediately turn it into a rebellion. They aren't motivated by pride in their work or just by some vague sense of responsibility, but by spite and the promise of not having to do the job next time.
Benson's gonna drop his balls when he sees how good we set up these chairs. He's gonna be all like,
Oh no, my gumball.
This encapsulates the safety net theory of their friendship. They act as enablers for each other's worst habits. In caffeinated concert tickets, when Mordecai suggests working overtime to afford tickets to see the band Fist Pump, Rigby's response is immediate and telling.
extra work? I don't even like regular work.
Of course, this is all by design, because as Quintel has said, the show only really works as long as these two are stuck in that phase of life. That's what the show is about. Right out of college with no real plan, nowhere to be, just each other. The second they grow out of it, this whole situation is over. So the whole show was kind of built on a friendship that structurally had nowhere to go. Mordecai and Rigby just didn't know that yet. And that safety net is actually a cage. It works both ways, just not equally. Rigby needs Mordecai around because the alternative is being a dropout alone. That part is pretty obvious. But Mordecai's version is much, much darker. He needs Rigby to stay a mess. As long as Rigby is failing, Mordecai gets to be the responsible one, the smart one, the one who is kind of failing but doing a little bit better, the one at least has it slightly more together than the other one. The moment Rigby actually improves, Mordecai has nothing left to measure himself against. This is kind of a terrible thing to need from your best friend at the time, Neither of them would ever want to say that out loud. They've just built a nice relationship here, a micro-society where success just means avoiding Benson's wrath for another afternoon. So when that unspoken dread finally needs somewhere to go, it goes here.
You always get your way.
Let's play punchies. Let's play punchies.
I'm sick of it. Of course I'm not gonna beat you at punchies.
Dude, you don't beat anybody at punchies.
These two will literally summon a demon or bring forth some natural disaster, but just can't have a 5-minute conversation about their feelings honestly and openly and respectfully. And that's just kind of how it works for a lot of guys at that age. This is not exactly aspirational, the not having an open conversation part. You can't just sit down and say, it bothers me when you always win and I feel kind of inept. You make it a competition instead and you just let it drive some internal hatred. Turn it into this bit, into this inside joke, turn it into this sarcasm. Mordecai and Rigby do this constantly.
I'm definitely smarter than you. It's been that way ever since you dropped out of high school.
Dude, what? I don't need no high school education.
Rigby knows exactly how he's perceived, so he wears his laziness like a bulletproof vest. But the second he drinks a brain-enhancing juice and actually outsmarts his best friend, Mordecai's fragile ego completely shatters. Instead of letting Rigby have a win, he chugs the juice himself just to brutally reclaim his throne. I want to have some brain juice. Earlier, we see this same abusive power disguised as friendship in the episode Jinx. What starts as a childish game quickly devolves into Mordecai taking sick pleasure in physically dominating Rigby. Mordecai leverages a playground rule to completely silence and abuse his friend, a display of his superiority complex. This complex becomes fully weaponized during his obsessive simp era regarding Margaret too. Frustrated by Mordecai's agonizing inability to simply ask Margaret out, Rigby just does it himself to disrupt the stagnant hierarchy that Mordecai relies on. Mordecai literally cannot process reality, and in a fit of blind, raging ego, he shoves Rigby off a microwave into the cosmic abyss, all because a girl laughed at someone else's joke. And some people say Rigby's the unhinged one. But if Mordecai's cardinal sin is arrogance, Rigby's is really cowardice. Rigby knows exactly where he stands, but for most of the show, instead of attempting to improve his station, Rigby dedicates his energy to ensuring that Mordecai never leaves his side. In regular show, the movie, the narrative peels back the curtain on why they ended up working at the park in the first place. For 6 full seasons, Quintel never actually broke these two up. They fought, they screwed each other over, they nearly got each other killed more than once, but the friendship always survived. He said he was saving it, that he held back on really testing them because he wanted the movie to be the first time the show asked whether this friendship actually deserved to make it. So when the answer comes, it's not a small thing. So, when they were seniors in high school, Rigby got a hold of Mordecai's college acceptance mail and forged a fake rejection letter. This is a calculated, life-altering act of sabotage that completely alters someone's course of life. Rigby condemned his best friends to a life of manual labor, potentially sub-poverty wages and perpetual stagnation purely out of a paralyzing fear of abandonment for when Mordecai could leave to go to college and make a much better life for himself. This toxic cocktail of Mordecai's ego and Rigby's sabotage creates this self-sustaining loop. They enable each other because holding the other accountable would require holding themselves accountable. Then again, in Season 2, Episode 18, Rigby abuses the sacred code of the solid to force Mordecai into deeply humiliating situations during a double date with Margaret and Eileen. Rigby forces Mordecai to be in a humiliating disaster. Why? Because Rigby recognizes that Mordecai is slipping away into the adult world of dating, and if Rigby looks like a loser, he needs Mordecai to look like one too. But if the middle seasons of regular show expose the toxic, radioactive underbelly of male codependency, the later seasons force the characters to grow up. The hardest part of any long-term relationship is surviving that terrifying transition into true adulthood. As the show progresses, J.G. Quintel flips the duo's dynamic completely on its head. Rigby realizes that keeping Mordecai stuck in the mud with him is a prison sentence for both of them and decides to start changing things. The catalyst for this is Eileen. Rigby begins a healthy, supportive relationship with a woman, and for the first time in his life, he finds an external motivation to improve himself. This culminates in one of the most significant character arcs in the series, where Rigby secretly goes back to high school to get his diploma. Rigby stops being the saboteur. He steps out of Mordecai's shadow and takes accountability for his own future. And while Rigby is ascending, Mordecai begins to completely flounder. Mordecai's entire identity was built on being better than Rigby. He relied on Rigby being a disaster so he wouldn't have to look at his own failures. When Rigby starts passing classes, managing a healthy relationship, and acting like an adult, Mordecai loses his reference point. Mordecai becomes so terrified of making the wrong choice that he doesn't choose at all, perpetually hurting the people around him. For years, Mordecai was the one lecturing Rigby. Now, the roles were completely reversed. Rigby actually has to step in and help Margaret get the old Mordecai back, because Mordecai is so deeply trapped in his own anxiety. Later, at the beginning of Season 7, Mordecai hits absolute rock bottom after ruining his relationship with CJ. He exiles himself to a literal dimension of garbage, but Rigby doesn't let him stay there. Rigby refuses to let Mordecai use his heartbreak as an excuse to regress. Rigby has outgrown the safety net of their early 20s, and he's demanding that Mordecai outgrow it too. But what about giving each other some space? This is where 90% of real-world male friendships die. Mordecai and Rigby had to learn that pursuing individual goals just means that the friendship is changing its shape and that each is progressing as a person. The triumph of this arc occurs in Rigby's graduation day special. Rigby actually does it. He gives a speech that officially buries the slacker, screw-up raccoon of Season 1. But before that, this exchange between the two main characters proves that their bond has been healed at its toxic roots. Mordecai finally came to terms with how he subconsciously or consciously viewed his relationship with his best friend, and he didn't like it. But at the end of the day, they both just want the best for each other. There is no jealousy here anymore, there is no superiority complex, no sabotage, and no toxic codependency. Mordecai didn't try to belittle Rigby's achievement to try to amp himself that much more up, and Rigby doesn't use his achievement to rub in Mordecai's face. They're finally standing on equal ground, and they're proud of each other. But while Mordecai and Rigby are the undisputed heartbeat of the series, their dynamic doesn't exist in a vacuum either. Regular Show is a masterclass in depicting a wide, diverse spectrum of masculinity across a wide range of characters. Each one represents a different stage of the male journey, a different type of person, a different venue, providing the North Stars for the duo's eventual evolution. The best example of this is the relationship of Mitch Muscleman Sorenstein and High Five Ghost, who represent the ultimate ride-or-die ideal. Beneath the green skin and the squealing bravado, their bond is arguably the healthiest and most stable in the entire series, even if it does seem a little basic by the outset. In Muscle Woman, Muscleman suffers a devastating breakup with his girlfriend, Starla. He completely falls apart, retreating under his desk to sob inconsolably.
I can't do this! This heart beats for another! Starla!
In this moment of vulnerability, Fives stays with him as an unwavering pillar of support.
We gotta get him back together with Starla.
Then there's Skips, the competent, physically imposing older figure who has seen everything, done everything, and consequently says very little.
Yeah, I've seen this before.
We went deep on what the cost of balancing love and duty does to him in a previous video, link below, so check that out. Then we have their raging boss, Benson, who is being completely crushed by the weight of his own future, which he never got to have. In episodes like 150-piece Kit, we learned that Benson used to be a legendary drummer. He had dreams, passions, and a life outside the park. But somewhere along the line, the world beat him down and he settled into middle management. His explosive anger toward Mordecai and Rigby isn't just about unraked leaves, it's more about the frustration of watching two young men actively waste the youth and potential that he feels he ruined for himself. In Think Positive, Benson is challenged to stop yelling. He represses his anger so deeply that it literally turns into a ball of energy that threatens to destroy the park. So, Benson's yelling is a necessary release valve for this. He pushes them relentlessly because he knows that if he stops, they'll end up being isolated and bitter, and he'll have to do something with that energy ball. But while Benson attempts to manage his pain through anger, control, and authority, the park's final archetype takes the exact opposite approach. We're talking about Pops Mallard. Pops is the complete antithesis of any kind of toxic masculinity. He represents the heart of the male collective, the goodness of everything. He's the only character who is entirely comfortable with physical affection and emotional openness and the connections that this opens up. Look at what actually happens in Wrap It Up, when a vicious, insulting rap crew starts taking over the park. Pops doesn't spit aggressive insults back at them. Instead, he counters with earnest poetry.
A hug can be the most wonderful thing. 2 arms wrapped around you like a mother's wing.
The aggressive crew ruthlessly mocks him for it. But Pops' radical innocence forces Mordecai and Rigby to drop their own toxic armor. Normally, Mordecai and Rigby are terrified of looking like losers, but because Pops is so genuine and is so nice, and because he loves them so unconditionally, they literally jump on stage dressed up in matching Victorian poetry outfits and join him. They do it to fiercely defend their friend because they know his heart is too pure for this world, and they see something good and want to emulate it. The final arc of the series literally launches the park staff into the vacuum of deep space. In the beginning, male conflict was entirely defined by physicality. Mordecai and Rigby settled their insecurities through punches or hyper-competitive video games. Violence and avoidance were the only tools in their emotional toolbox. The end of Season 8 directly confronts this toxic foundation. In space, Pops is pitted against his brother, Anti-Pops, in a battle that has repeated across eternity. But Pops doesn't break the cycle with a stronger punch this time. He realizes that fighting his brother only guarantees mutual destruction. Instead, he flies toward Anti-Pops, wraps his arms around him in a hug, and tackles him into a dying sun. After Pops resets the universe, the park staff returns to Earth. The cosmic threat is gone, but the show doesn't end with a celebratory slice of cake or a round of video games. It actually shows us what the next 25 years looks like. The show transitions into a completely wordless montage that depicts the terrifying reality of true adulthood. Mordecai packs his belongings into his car, says goodbye to Rigby, and leaves the park. For anyone who has ever survived their 20s alongside a best friend, this moment hits like a freight train. Sometimes, for your future, you move on. We watch them build entirely separate lives. They're no longer spending every waking second together. The codependency is long dead, and we can only assume that they see each other every now and again, but their codependence and the friendship is different now. And then we see 25 years into the future, the remaining park staff, now older, gray-haired, and dressed in suburban dad clothes, gather back at the park for a reunion to unveil a statue of Pops. When Mordecai and Rigby stand next to each other in front of the monument, the visual contrast to Season 1 is staggering. They aren't the frantic, insecure kids desperate for a distraction. They're grown men, secure in their own identities, standing side by side as true equals and friends.
Can't believe it's been 25 years.
Yeah.
Jolly good show.
We can all end up like that, and it all happens on our own timeline, but Regular Show figured out something that most shows don't bother with, that the friendships that stick aren't the ones where everything went right. They were the ones where everything went wrong and you both stayed despite that. Through the punches and the forged letters and the garbage dimensions and the cosmic disasters. Mordecai and Rigby started out as two guys who couldn't set up chairs without ending the world. They ended up standing next to each other 25 years later as actual mature people with an intact world. Whole, separate, everything still there. How did their journey mirror yours? Did you fight with people you were friends with? Let me know in the comments down below, and let me know about the relationships with people in your life that you think could improve. And if you want to see how another cartoon handled a completely different side of growing up, I broke down the episode where Dipper Pines finally gets rejected, what it costs him, and why that turns out to be the best thing that's ever happened to him. That one's worth watching, so like, subscribe, and go check that one out. It should be on the screen right about now. And as always, jolly good show, old chap. Yarr. Peace.